greatest sports debate show on the internet.
Jalen Carter does not dive for his knee.
He grabbed his knee, though, which was a
dirty play. That was a football play.
You don't get to talk anymore.
Football play.
You don't get to talk anymore, sir.
Championship rings, starring Brandon Lewis.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions, and welcome to Championship Rings.
And Josh Ungar.
Buddy. So, who was right about the Indiana Pacers making it to the conference finals?
Well, let's see. Jalen Brunson gets hurt, and Alex Burke gets hurt, and Mitchell Robinson gets hurt, and Josh Hart gets hurt. You have the easiest road to the Eastern Conference Finals this side of the Boston Celtics. So, were you right, or was it the NBA gods saying, let Josh Ungar be the only person in the world to pick the Indiana Pacers?
Nope, I was right from the beginning.
Begins now.
I am Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World. That is Josh Ungar, Ungar to the Max, the host of the Sports Room Talk Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a Tuesday. It is Championship Rings, and Josh, feels like forever since we've done a show together.
It really does. It really does. I don't know the last time we did a show together.
I was trying to think back, and I think it was the day before the 4th of July.
It might have been. I think it was like when we did that big wrestling show.
Yeah, you're right. That was our last show. So it's been a while since we've been on a Tuesday. We have a lot to cover tonight. We're going to get into NFL training camps. We're going to get into some NBA news. We're going to get into a WNBA Finals rematch. We're going to get into the somewhat complicated legacy of Hulk Hogan, as well as SummerSlam 2025. But speaking of things that are complicated, the president came out last week, specifically over the weekend, and said that he wants the Washington Commanders to return to the Redskin name. He wants the Cleveland Guardians to return to the Cleveland Indians, and he has even threatened that if the Commanders do not change their name specifically, they may not be able to get their new stadium that they are looking to fund back RFK-ish, sort of in downtown Washington, D.C., Maryland area, as opposed to where the current stadium is at right now, out in the suburbs. So, Josh, do you have really a strong opinion on whether or not the Commanders or Guardians should switch back to that original team name?
So, when they had that original name, I respectfully chose not to say it on air. I just called them Washington because I just find that name to be racist and, stereotypical, all those types of words. I don't need to get into it. And with the Cleveland Indians, I didn't necessarily mind the name Indians. It was more the Chief Wahoo logo that I had an issue with, for the same reason that I didn't like Washington's original name. So the fact that President Trump wants both teams to go back to their original names, based off of how his first presidency went and how this current presidency is going, it doesn't surprise me. Do I think he'll actually follow through and prevent the Commanders from building the new RFK Stadium? I'm not too sure. Sometimes he'll say things but not actually do it. So it's kind of a tricky line he's walking, or you know what I mean there. Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. This name thing has obviously came up the last few years. I always thought if they're going to make the Indians change specifically, they should probably make the Atlanta Braves change and, at least get rid of the Tomahawk. Same thing in Kansas City with the Chiefs. They have not done that. Obviously, it's a complicated subject. I think you can make the case for both. But listen, I think at the end of the day, the bigger story, it really doesn't matter, obviously, the name of the team. Some people that are older generation are going to get madder than others. But I think the stadium story is the story here because Landover Field or whatever it's called now, it used to be called FedEx Field, where they play at out there.
Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland. But that stadium is
exactly. It's a dump. It's probably the 32nd out of 32nd stadiums in the NFL if you're grading stadiums. I don't think a lot of people would make an argument for that. And the Commanders, listen, over the past few years, they've got a new name. They got a new owner. They got a new coach. And they finally have a franchise quarterback. And for being the dumpster fire of an organization that they were for 20 years, I think Commanders sort of has represented this new era for them. I think that name should probably stay for the situation when it comes to the Cleveland Guardians / Indians. I know many people in my inner circle who don't even agree with what President Trump is saying, but are still calling them the Indians because they refuse to call them the Guardians because they believe that Indians should have not been taken away. So I don't care either way. I still call them the Guardians. I call them the G-Men. I call them the Indians. It's really interchangeable. But if they went back to their team name, I really wouldn't care.
Yeah. Again, with the Indians, it was more so Chief Wahoo that I had an issue with rather than the name Indians. And I get it. Like, people were pushing for Washington to change their name, and people were pushing for the Indians to change their name. And yet there wasn't a lot of the same conversation around the Chicago Blackhawks or the Florida State Seminoles. There was a bit of a conversation, as you said, about the Atlanta Braves and the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, there was nothing really in terms of either the Florida State Seminoles, at least not that I've heard, or the Chicago Blackhawks. So for me, it's very interesting that Washington and Cleveland are once again at the center of this particular conversation. Again, we're trying to keep this as sports-centric of a conversation as we can.
And we should make politics. We should make a note that the Cleveland Guardians organization has came out and basically said we're not changing the name.
Yeah. By the way, I predicted they would go with the name Guardians, but not because of the bridge statues by the stadium. I actually predicted the name Guardians because their stadium is right next to Rocket Arena. And so I'm like, well, if the Indians are going to change their name and they're neighbors with the Cavaliers, they should have a name that goes with the Cavaliers. Let's see, what goes with defense and defending the city and all that type of stuff? Oh, how about Guardians?
Yeah, and I know that they did all those studies when they were changing the name, and the Native Americans came out and basically said that they didn't have a problem with the name. It was more of the cheap Wahoo stuff, obviously, which they had been fading away even before the name change. But we know the name change was only official. I don't know if you know this or not, but basically they agreed to change the name so then we could get the 2019 MLB All-Star game.
Yeah. And I do know that while they were still called the Indians, at a number of their home openers, there were people outside, like, protesting.
Yeah, so obviously it's a touchy subject. We will remain updated and vigilant as we get more information on it. Let's go to a subject on the field, some training camp storylines now. One of the bigger ones is actually in Washington itself because Terry McLaurin is at Commanders training camp, but he is without a new contract. Now, you can debate Terry McLaurin ranks among wide receivers. He's certainly in the top 10. Where at, I don't know because I did not do a list, but he's certainly on the list, I believe, of top 10 receivers in the NFL. And the Commanders are paying Jayden Daniels on a rookie contract. They have no excuse to get this done. I'm kind of shocked that with the new regime and the way they were handing out money, they have not got this deal done yet. Yes, they did go and get Deebo Samuel, but he even says it himself. He's a wide back. He's not a wide receiver. He's not a running back. And Zach Ertz was really good for them last year, but he's obviously, on the older side of his career. Outside of Terry McLaurin, at least in my opinion, and maybe it's the Eagles fan in me, there's still not a lot of people on the outside for Washington that legitimately scares me. And again, you're paying Jaden Daniels on a rookie contract. To me, this was a no-brainer to get this done. I don't know why it hasn't been done yet.
I think if Terry McLaurin has the type of season I think he's capable of, he could break into the top 5 in terms of wide receivers. He's capable of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, you're not taking out Chase. You're not taking out Jefferson. You're not taking out A.J. Brown, in my opinion. You're not taking out Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit. I mean, those to me are your top 4.
Right. So I would probably say he has a chance to break into the top 5 at number 5.
For sure. I mean, I still think Mike Evans is up there.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Tyreek Hill, not so much anymore.
I think he's in the top 10, not top 5.
I want to put Jalen Waddle in there, but
no, I don't even know if Waddle's in the top 10. I'll be honest with you. I think
Cooper
he's top
Kupp,
15.
Not so much anymore.
Not so much. You know what? I would take his former teammate now, Puka, over McLaurin.
Okay.
I still think, to be honest with you, Devontae Adams is better than Terry. No, I think that's close.
Yeah.
I think you can make the argument.
Either way, outside of Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin is the most important player for the Commanders, offense or defense. Again, outside of Jaden, because you saw once Jaden Daniels found that chemistry with Terry McLaurin, it allowed the Commanders to really get going in the way that they did.
Well, it's the first time Terry McLaurin's ever had a real quarterback. And, of course, he puts up the numbers. Now, again, they are not paying really anybody on offense.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they don't have any premier players on defense that they're really paying. So at this point.
No, and the other thing is, too, Laramie Tunsil was probably their best signing of the offseason. I love that move for them at left tackle. Outside of getting Debo, and there are a lot of people that think the Commanders will compete / take the NFC East crown from the Eagles this year, which I'm not denying it's possible. I'm just saying the more you look at the Commanders, the more you're like, this should have been a bigger offseason for them spending-wise. I expected them to go on in this spending spree and get some free agents on defense, add a third receiver or add another running back because you're not paying Jaden Daniels anything. And they really mostly, outside of those 2 moves again, stayed pat.
Yeah, it was interesting. But the fact that they haven't gotten this deal done yet is honestly, I hate to use this term, but it's a little bit embarrassing. Like, you're coming off your best season in years. I don't even know the last time they had a season like that. And as you said, they found their franchise quarterback. They got their head coach in Dan Quinn. They got a new regime. Dan Snyder's out of the building. And yet you're not willing to pay your best wide receiver.
Right.
Like, the dots don't connect here, and I don't get it. The fact that he's willing to still report to camp is also interesting to me.
I think that's a good sign for them. I expect this deal to get done by week 1.
If it doesn't, then the Commanders really have issues.
Well, speaking of which, our man Grandizer has a question. He said, McLaurin, what about Micah Parsons? Listen, Micah Parsons is going to get paid. This is Jerry Jones doing it all over again. This is going to be Dak Prescott all over again. I will be absolutely shocked if by the end of week 1, because it may even come the Sunday of week 1, the way that Dak Prescott did last year. If Micah Parsons is not signed by the time the Cowboys take the field for week 1, that Thursday game against my Eagles, then yeah, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I remember Dak Prescott was paid just a couple hours before kickoff against the Browns in week 1 on that
and how did
Sunday.
that work out for the Cowboys? Dak got hurt, and they had a 7-win season, and spoiler alert, I think it could be even worse for them this year. That's kind of a preview of what our NFL predictions are going to look like in a month.
Yes. But Micah Parsons is one of the top linebackers in the NFL.
Oh, I think he's to answer this other question, he's a top 3 defensive player in the league.
Yes, I would put him with Myles Garrett and TJ Watt.
Yes.
Easy.
And you know what? I'll take that back. I think he's 4. Because you know who I'd put over him?
Who?
Hutchinson.
Oh. Okay.
Because I think Hutchinson is going to have a big year, first of all. I know he got hurt last year. But also, if you look at Micah, and also, you know who else I'd take over Micah? So I'd put him at 5. I'd put my guy, Jalen Carter, over him easily.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Go look at Micah Parsons, and again, the Cowboys haven't won playoff games in years, but go look at his playoff production and go look at his production against good teams. It's not that great.
Yeah. When Aaron Donald was in his prime, I would have taken him over Micah Parsons.
Absolutely. Even though you know my thoughts on Aaron Donald, we've had that argument, but he's certainly better than Micah Parsons.
Yes. But I don't get it with Jerry Jones. Like,
the Cowboys are a soap opera, man. Well, why do you think they're doing this Last Dance version of the Dallas Cowboys on Netflix?
Yeah, isn't that documentary called like America's Team or something? Newsflash, Dallas, you're not America's team anymore. You haven't won anything since the 90s. I would say the Green Bay Packers are America's team, or the Pittsburgh Steelers, not you.
Well, from one bad organization to another, thank God this man finally got signed, because, again, I'm supposed to be a Browns fan because I live in Cleveland and they are my hometown team, and everybody I know, including you, is a Browns fan. So I'm not supposed to like the Bengals, but it's hard for me not to because of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, even Yogi Bosch. I love that offense, and the Bengals to me are a roster that should be 10, 11, 12 wins every year, and they're not because they had the worst defense in the history of the NFL last year.
Plus, they're allergic to games in September.
That, and apparently they're allergic to spending money because for some reason Jamar Stewart went and worked out at Texas A&M before he got signed because, the Bengals just didn't want to pay him for some reason because they wanted a clause in his contract or something if he got into trouble. I don't know. And now they're still not going to pay Trey Anderson. Now they drafted Stewart to potentially be his replacement, but Anderson's still sitting out there. And it's like, if this was take the roster, take the coach, take everything that's the Bengals, move them to any other team. Flip them even with Jacksonville, who's got money, obviously, because of Shad Khan. And this team would be, on paper, at least a playoff contender, not a Super Bowl contender. Here in Cincinnati, we're saying, how many points is Joe Burrow going to have to score this year? 50, because they can't even get their defensive players on the field.
Yeah, especially because you're going up against Lamar Jackson. I want to include Aaron Rodgers, but he's washed, so no.
Well, you're going up against Josh Allen. You're going up against Patrick Mahomes. You're going up against Justin Herbert. Just take a look at the AFC.
And you're going up against C.J. Stroud if he has a backup or bounce back.
Stroud. And I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. Bo Nix, your guy Geno Smith is now in Vegas. Who knows what Jacksonville is going to be? Could Trevor Lawrence return back to number 1 pick form? I mean,
I don't trust Tua, so
no, I agree with you on that. And but speaking of quarterbacks, Josh, we had some news coming out of Browns camp because Kenny Pickett was injured running a sprint down the sideline, no contact, just pulled up lame. He's going to be out a week, which should theoretically open up the door for Shedeur Sanders to get more reps. But, for some reason, the Browns coaching staff does not like Shedeur Sanders, and he's still getting 14 reps.
Yeah, if I had to guess, old man Joe Flacco is going to be the starter for the Cleveland Browns. Because that's just how it works. And Shedeur will probably be on the field, if I had to guess, week 8 at New England or week 10 at the Jets.
I actually think it's probably week 7 at home against the Dolphins. I think you give them a home start because the first part of the schedule is so brutal. But I'm just going to ask you this question now, Josh. I don't know if I've asked you this question or not before, so I'm going to ask it to you. I'm sorry if I repeat myself. I look at the Browns quarterback situation, and I see Joe Flacco as a 40-something-year-old man. I already know what I got out of Joe Flacco. I look at Kenny Pickett. I think, he's got about the same amount of touchdowns in his career than he does interceptions. He's got a low ceiling, and, he's probably a backup in the NFL. I don't think Dylan Gabriel is an NFL quarterback. I'll raise my hand to just say it right now. I don't think he's going to make it in this league. And so, for me, if you think Shedeur Sanders was a first-round talent and you got him in the 5th round, in my opinion, the Browns organization this offseason has done the fan base no favors. They let go of Nick Chubb. There was the Myles Garrett saga with will he be traded, will he not be? There was the old draft situation. Now there's the Quinyon Junkin situation, which who knows what the hell is going to go on there. This fan base, including you, needs something to root for. And so to me, the only way to feel like there's hope and optimism is to throw the kid out there, Shedeur, week 1.
Knowing this organization and who the owners are, it certainly wouldn't surprise me if they do that, because I said this to you and you tend to agree with me. The Shedeur pick had Jimmy Haslam's fingerprints all over it.
Did you hear what Jimmy Haslam said today?
No, I haven't looked at the text that Fitz sent us.
He went out and he basically said that Andrew Berry was the one that made the decision to draft Shedeur Sanders, not him.
That's interesting because when you watch the draft room footage, when the Browns drafted Dylan Gabriel, everybody in the room was excited and, high-fiving and all that. And then when they drafted Shedeur, they were all just like this.
Haslam said that when he drove home Friday night and when he got back to the facility Saturday morning, he thought there was no chance in hell they were going to take Shedeur Sanders. And he said that they had a meeting Saturday morning before the draft. They had another meeting right before they made the trade up, and it was Andrew Berry who made that decision. Whether he's lying or not, who knows, but that's what he said.
Okay, well, Andrew Berry, you are now on the hot seat because you traded for number 4. You let Baker Mayfield walk. Or no, I'm sorry, you traded Baker. You let Nick Chubb walk. You traded for number 4. You drafted Dylan Gabriel. And you drafted Shedeur. You are on the hot seat. I think Kevin Stefanski is safe. I like what he's done as our head coach. Although I'd like a little more balance in our offense overall. It feels like we've gotten a little too run happy at times, which I get it. That was Stefanski's style in Minnesota, but it feels a little disjointed at times. That's just my perspective, though. But overall, I think Stefanski is safe. But Andrew Berry, if it is true that you're the one who wanted Shedeur, you are majorly on the hot seat.
Let me pose this question to you then. The Browns go 3-14 again. Is Stefanski still safe?
Oh, boy. I don't think in that scenario, I don't think he would get fired. I think he would be on the hot seat. I'll be honest with you. As of right now, I have them getting 6 wins. At the most.
Oh, I think that's so optimistic.
I'm saying at the most.
That's what I mean. Because I think at the most you're looking at 4.
The schedule is honestly brutal. Like,
and did you see the news today? MJ Emerson was carted off, no weight on his leg. It seriously looks like it could be a season-ending injury.
I don't get it with this team. Watch this. As soon as the Browns get into their new stadium, the Haslams will turn it around and it'll be like, hey, we're actually a good team now. Watch. I bet you that happens.
Speaking of coaches, let's switch gears to basketball because Billy Donovan of the Chicago Bulls has got a multi-year contract extension. Me and you have disagreed a little bit about Chicago because I feel like they're a team that is on the up and rising. I think giving Billy Donovan...
I don't see it that way.
I know you don't. We talked about this before when we hit free agency. I think Chicago's a top 6 seed in the East next year, and I think that they could make it into the top 4.
Dude, you're being way too optimistic there. What do
they not have?
What? Okay, they're looking to possibly get rid of Nikola Vucevic.
Well, he's still there.
No, the Bulls are not going to be top 6 in the East.
I mean, who's better than them? Is Philly? No, I don't trust the Sixers at all.
I would put Atlanta above them.
Oh, Trae Young, who's a little 5 foot tall point guard, and Kristaps Porzingis, who can't stay healthy.
I would put Toronto above them.
No.
Yes.
Toronto's not a good team at all. Who does Toronto have?
Scotty Barnes.
That's it. Yeah, Nikola Vucevic, Kobe White. They're both better than Scotty Barnes.
Well, okay, Chicago has Josh Giddey, Kobe White. That's it.
Yes, exactly. And Vucevic, and Kevin Huerter, and Trey Jones, and Patrick Williams. Dude, they're building a team.
The last time the Bulls were relevant was when Derrick Rose was there winning MVPs.
Oh, I agree with you. But guess what? They were more relevant than the Raptors last year because they won 10 more games than the Raptors.
I don't trust the Chicago Bulls. Look, think about this. Now that the Lakers have been sold, the Bulls are one of the last family-run organizations. And I don't think they're going to get any better until the Reinsdorfs sell them.
I mean, they were a game below 500 last year. They are building something. They've gotten better each of the last 2 years.
I don't trust this organization. I don't. Detroit's better than them. Cleveland is better than them. New York is better than them. Even with Jason Tatum injured, I'd still take Boston over them.
Okay, that's 4, and I think Detroit is arguable. I don't know how good the Pacers are going to be next year. Their 2 best players are gone, Turner and Halliburton.
Yeah, I would still.
By the way, I think that they're better than Milwaukee. I absolutely do. That's the organization I don't trust.
Okay, even with the Bucks are a hard one because I don't know what they're going to do at point guard.
There's a team every year that comes out of nowhere. Orlando a couple years ago, no one thought they were going to be the 5 seed. Guess what? They were.
Pacers. I would take Orlando over them.
Now that I agree with. Again, I think Orlando's a top 3-4 team in the East, right behind the Cavs.
I would take Cleveland, New York, Boston, Orlando, and Toronto over them.
Oh, no, I'm taking Chicago over Toronto. So you think Toronto's going to go from 30 wins to 45 and be a playoff team?
Yes.
With what addition?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But have the Bulls really made any additions?
Well, again, they won 10 more games than the Raptors last year. All I'm telling you is they were a game out from the playoffs last year. And by the way, I absolutely think next year, as those young guys get better, they're going to be better than Atlanta. They're going to be better than Miami. I think they're going to be right where like the Pistons were last year, 43, 44 wins.
I think you're being a little optimistic with the Bulls. I really do.
Well, the Bulls are telling you I'm right because they gave their coach a contract extension.
Yeah, even though they've made it to the playoffs once and didn't do anything.
Well, to be fair, Billy Donovan was a better college coach at Florida than he was in the NBA. I think it's taken him time, but they got players. Do you remember what they did over the stretch of February and March? They reminded me of what the Rockets did 2 years ago. Remember the Rockets 2 years ago when they came out of nowhere to challenge Golden State and then they just missed out on the play-in tournament?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then guess what? The Rockets rose from that to the 2 seed the very next year.
The Bulls aren't going to do that. Come on.
Could they? Look how weak the East is. Boston doesn't have Jason Tatum. Indiana doesn't have Tyrese Halliburton. The Knicks may be trading Karl Anthony Towns. We don't know. The East is basically the Cavs, the Knicks, the Magic, and the Bulls, and the Pistons. That's it.
I want to put Philadelphia in there, but I can't trust Embiid.
Let's move on to the WNBA because we have a 2024 WNBA Finals rematch.
Yes, this was an absolutely fantastic series. Game 5 went into overtime. You had a Sabrina Ionescu buzzer beater in this series. And it was capped off with the New York Liberty winning their first ever championship in franchise history. It got extremely high viewership. And so on Wednesday night from the Target Center, which is also home to the Minnesota Timberwolves, we will get the rematch as the New York Liberty. Unfortunately, they might be without Breanna Stewart, who is dealing with an injury at the moment, but they still have Sabrina Ionescu. They still have the Finals MVP, Jonquel Jones, taking on Courtney Williams, Nafisa Collier, and the Minnesota Lynx. These are two of the top teams in the WNBA once again this season, and it is going to be a fantastic game. I would not be surprised if we get a rematch of these two teams in the WNBA Finals this season, which, by the way, the WNBA Finals have been extended to a 7-game series. So, whereas last year the series ended in 5, that would not be the case this season. It would go the full 7 games.
I will tell you what will be best for the WNBA is if Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever make the WNBA Finals.
100%.
Like, I get these two teams are good. I'll be honest, no one really cares. Caitlin Clark's now playing in the game. Let's just be real. She is the WNBA. I've said this multiple times, and I will stick by it. You look at any metric by comparison of WNBA, ticket sales, ratings, viewership, jerseys, they're all surrounded by her. The All-Star Game viewership without him, which we were not on the air to talk about that, the All-Star Weekend viewership without her plummeted.
Yeah, that's true. But just to reinforce it, these are the two best teams in the WNBA. Minnesota sits atop the league overall at 22-5, and New York is just 4 games behind them at 17-8.
They may be, but I'll be honest with you, until you mentioned something about this to me, I had no idea this was even happening.
Sorry, but I've been a long-time Minnesota Lynx fan, going back to when they had Lindsay Whalen and Maya Moore, Sylvia Fowles, and they had their back-to-back finals matchups with the LA Sparks. And it was absolutely fantastic to watch. The Minnesota Lynx have been one of the top teams in the WNBA. They've won 4 or 5 championships. Maya Moore is going into the Hall of Fame this season. So this is a big time matchup, and I cannot wait.
Well, let's hope you enjoy it. So we're
I'll
gonna
probably have to watch it
Go ahead.
later though, because I'm actually going to be at Progressive Field tomorrow night to watch the Colorado Rockies take on the Cleveland Guardians.
Well, good luck to us. There's something in the news about the Guardians that I will not dive into.
Okay,
but,
since you brought it up, let's get into it. Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase, I guess they have some sort of gambling, betting, friendship, something.
I mean, the way Kate Smith was pitching last night, he might have been on it too. Who knows?
But they are both suspended because of betting stuff. And
my guess would be first pitch ball based
Yep.
off the evidence that we have seen, because there is legitimate evidence. And I'm sorry, these two players are about to be banned from Major League Baseball for life.
yeah. And there were rumors that the Guardians were possibly going to trade Emmanuel Clase on Thursday, which is, for those of you who don't know, that is the trade deadline. It would not be surprising to me if the Cleveland Guardians are sellers. I know they've been playing better baseball as of late, but they just lost 2 out of 3 against the Kansas City Royals. They lost 8-6 against the worst team in baseball, the Colorado Rockies. Honestly,
And now with this news, I think that's a factor too.
yeah, it would not surprise me if they trade Stephen Kwan. Honestly,
That would surprise me, to be honest with you, because you still have him under control for a couple years.
yeah. Well, did you expect them to trade Josh Naylor or Andres Jimenez?
No,
There you
but
go.
they did. But I mean, there were rumblings about both of them, though. There are rumblings about Kwan, but it's not as much as it was with Naylor and Jimenez.
Sure.
If they're gonna trade anybody, to me, it's Santana. But
the Guardians are not going to get value for Carlos Santana.
I got the feeling they're just gonna stay pat.
The Guardians might trade Carlos Santana for a bag of beans, like when the Cavs trade for Andre Drummond for a ham sandwich.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to transition now into the wrestling portion of our program. Before we get to SummerSlam, though, we do want to acknowledge, obviously, last Thursday, Hulk Hogan passing away at the age of 71 years old. I'm not going to mince words here. Hulk Hogan has a very complicated legacy in wrestling because of what he had said on video years ago. And many of the wrestling universe, did not forgive him, and they have the right to do so. But I think that you do have to acknowledge that whatever your favorite wrestling company is, whether it is AEW, whether it is WWE, whether it's whatever you prefer, Hulk Hogan was the one that put professional wrestling on the map. Cody Rhodes has said numerous times that he is the first true superstar of professional wrestling. He is right on that. Obviously, Hogan's legacy, the Hulkamaniacs, the whole big deal. I actually think his best run in professional wrestling was his run in WCW with the NWO. I think that was even bigger. You could make the argument because of the time that we were in during that period. Then the 80s boom when he would go up against, the Macho Man Savages and the Ultimate Warriors and the Roddy Pipers of the world, and obviously Andre the Giant. But yeah, Hulk's legacy will be that he is one of the first true global superstars and put professional wrestling on the map, regardless of how you feel about him politically. And it was surreal to have firsthand experience to be there Friday night on SmackDown at Rocket Arena in Cleveland, Ohio, to watch that tribute and to see many people dressed up in Hogan gear.
Yeah. Like you said, Hulk Hogan is a very complex individual. And with this, I have to separate the person from the wrestler, because for me, I did not like the person. Just because of, like you said, what he has said and various other things he's done. But in terms of the wrestler, because that's more of what I want to focus on, whether you view him as the GOAT of WWE or whatever, you can't deny he's one of the legends. If it wasn't for him, WWE would not be at the level it is. I don't think AEW would be on TNT because he's a big reason why TNT is even a factor in terms of wrestling, because he had some of his biggest matches on TNT back in the day, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong there, but as far as I know. And yeah, definitely a big loss for the wrestling community. I'm sure it was surreal, like you said, to be there at Rocket Arena for that tribute. And again, with him, you have to separate the wrestler from the person.
Yeah, it's kind of eerie if you think about it. His last appearance, that Raw, the first Raw on Netflix, where he was, and again, rightfully so, because of comments he had made before, he was booed out of the building.
Yeah, that is interesting that was his last appearance in WWE, was him getting booed out of the building. And I like this comment by Grandizer. This is the thing. If you hear Hulk say those things about a friend of yours, a friend of color, then you would not stand for it. So it's sort of clear cut. It's an interesting comment to me. I don't really want to comment on it too much, but just thought it was an interesting point by Grandizer nonetheless.
Well, we've been going at it a little bit playfully this week on X. I don't think we've disagreed more on wrestling than we have, but I think we've had some really good conversations about it. So let's get into what's going to take place this weekend at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, not New York Jets and Giants fans. Which
yes, you guys are
know.
The New Jersey Giants and the New Jersey Jets.
Yes.
You are not the New York Jets. You are not the New York Giants. Sorry, but you're not.
Before we dive into what matches we want to dive into, I'm going to make a general comment about the way they laid out this card, because I'm very interested and fascinated by how they went about booking what match on what night. Because night one has 3 non-title matches and 3 tag team matches, and night 2, out of the 6 matches, only one of them is a regular sanctioned match that's not a no disqualification match. So I thought they would balance out the card a little bit, but it's like they're putting all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think they're banking big on, spoiler alert, I think Seth Rollins is going to cash in. I think this whole injury thing is a work. But CM Punk will win the World Heavyweight Championship, even though he should not be in this match, but whatever. He will defeat Gunther, and then you will hear, "Burn it down!" And he will come down, cash in, beat Punk, and walk out of SummerSlam as the World Heavyweight Champion. But when I look at the card overall, there's not really a match that I'm like, oh my God, I need to see that match. Like, there's not that match that stands out to me. They all kind of blend together, if you will. And
that's where I disagree a little bit, because maybe it's because I'm comparing this to the WrestleMania card, because the WrestleMania card, again, as much as I like Mania, I did feel like it was a little bit blah in the build. I at least think they have tried harder with this build. They're trying to make SummerSlam feel bigger. There is only, out of the 12 matches announced in this card, there's only one match that I'm like, about.
Well, here's the reason I disagree with what you're saying. It's because they had Saturday night's main event. They had Evolution. They really didn't have time to build to Evolution. They were just like, hey, let's put these two together and give them a match.
Well, yes, Evolution was not built right. They were building SummerSlam, though, at the same time Evolution was being built.
Yes,
And
but here's the thing. Like, CM Punk and Gunther, you could have turned that into a legitimate feud where they had
so it's not a legitimate feud.
it feels like that the feud has only just started and now they're having the match. Like,
Well, that to me, there's two ways you can look at this. I looked at it like they've had 2 weeks of promos, and I loved the fact they have not made one single touch of physical contact on each other. This is a very different build. It's a war of words. It's about CM Punk being the old guy who still thinks he is the best in the world versus the guy who many people today are calling the best professional wrestler in the world. That's the story. Punk, Gunther,
I get that,
it's
but
those
like,
two names. They don't need a huge build with a physical brawl. And like, I very much have enjoyed this style of build for this specific match because this doesn't have to be a one-off. It could be a one-off, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a one-off. And I think because of the circumstances surrounding Seth Rollins, which I actually disagree with you because, in my opinion, if that was a work, that was one of the worst ways to get to a work I've ever seen on Saturday Night's Main Event. And why would they pull LA Knight off the card if it wasn't a legitimate injury? So, to me, I think now you look at this match and you go, to me, it's 50-50. I tend to agree with you. I think Punk will defeat Gunther. I think it's going to be by submission with the Anaconda Vice because we know Gunther has struggled historically when it comes to people putting submission moves on him. But I could very well see a scenario where Gunther does defeat CM Punk. He retains the World Championship, and we go along this journey with Punk of, oh my God, he's an old man. He can't do it anymore. And he's trying to chase the world championship, his last legitimate world championship run.
So I'm not saying I want the feud to be extended so they can have like physical brawls and all that, but I want more promo battles between them. Like, you know, we got the promo battle they had last night was really good. But I want more of that. Like, give me more meat on the bone.
Well, if we had more time, they had only 2 Raws to build this thing after CM Punk became the #1 contender.
And that's my primary issue is like if you had established this feud earlier, you could have built it up more. Again, I'm not saying they should have gone into physical brawls, but
for 2 weeks they've done a hell of a job.
Yeah,
You don't need to sell. To me, the way I look at it, you don't need to sell Punk versus Gunther. Punk versus Gunther sells itself.
No, here's my thing. I agree with what you're saying, but it just feels like they had to rush into the feud. Does that make sense?
Yes, though I do think the feud itself wasn't rushed because I don't think it wasn't planned. Like, I remember they started it. Remember I told you when they had the one incident when Punk came out to the ring? I can't remember if it was after Night of Champions, but it was one of those Raws where like Gunther and Punk were in the ring and Punk shoved Gunther down trying to get to Seth Rollins. Do you remember that?
I don't.
And I told you on the air the next day on Championship Rings, I said that's your SummerSlam Night 1 main event.
It most likely is.
It is. Because the match that I believe will open the show is the other candidate for main event, though it's not necessarily Roman and Jey Uso versus Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, which I believe at this point, Roman Reigns, if he's not in the main event, you might as well open with him.
So here's my thing with this match. I don't mind it being a tag team match. Again, I think Braun Breaker should have won that gauntlet and faced Gunther at SummerSlam. That was one of our big beefs on X recently. But after they didn't go in that direction, I was like, Well, why don't we just do a straight up singles match between Braun Breaker and Roman Reigns? Not that Jey Uso and Bronson Reed aren't deserving of being in this tag team match. That's not what I'm trying to suggest. But if you do a singles match between Roman Reigns and Braun Breaker, even if you were to have Roman Reigns win that match, I think that says a lot about Braun Breaker.
Well,
So-
I think you, and I get it. You're ready to push Braun Breaker to the moon. You see it. I get where you're coming from. I think it's better to go the route they're going, which is a slow build. I think Breaker and Reed are actually going to win this match. I think Breaker is going to pin Jey Uso because I think him pinning Roman Reigns will be a huge deal when it eventually happens. Now, I don't think it's going to happen at WrestleMania. I think the feud will be over by then because I think Roman's moving on to something different at WrestleMania, which I will get to in a minute. But I do think, like I've already told you, I think Breaker's next year is practically mapped out.
I'm loving what Braun Breaker is doing, especially since he's been paired with Seth Rollins. I think that's allowed him to really find his footing. And the fact that like he was with Seth Rollins, but now that Rollins is out, unfortunately, Breaker is just breaking out. So
I believe when we are on championship rings next year, previewing SummerSlam, Braun Breaker will be the number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship.
So that's why for me, again, nothing against Jey Uso or Bronson Reed. But if you're not going to have Braun Breaker challenge Gunther, which again, that was the match I wanted, then I would have done straight up singles match. Roman Reigns versus Braun Breaker.
You're going to get both of those in due time. I think Breaker will go over Roman Reigns eventually, but when it does, it has to be a massive deal and it has to be clean. I think hitting Roman Reigns at SummerSlam would be way too quick of a push because I personally think we still are waiting for 6 months for Seth Rollins. Now, if you're right and it's a work and he becomes the world champion at SummerSlam, then we can talk about, okay, when does Breaker turn on Seth? When do they do the push?
And
but
here's my other reason why I think Rollins is going to cash in at SummerSlam, because then if you give him the championship, Punk has a reason to go after him. Sami Zayn has a reason to go after him. Roman Reigns has a reason to go after him. Braun Breaker will eventually have a reason to go after him. Like, if you have Seth cash in and win the championship, you have a lot of guys who could come after him.
Okay.
So
this is going to be a little bit off topic, but I'm going to go off the rails here, and I'm going to give you my long-term booking of all this convoluted mess, because I'm going to talk about what I think is going to happen in the main event of night 2 of SummerSlam, which, of course, is the street fight of Cody Rhodes, John Cena for the Undisputed Championship.
Even though John Cena didn't actually sign the contract, that was one of the weirdest contract signings I've ever seen. Like, I'm sorry, Cody, but Netflix will not allow me to do this match. Maybe we'll do it at Clash in Paris or Survivor Series, but it won't be at SummerSlam. And then Cody Rhodes kicks his ass, and he's on top of him, and he signs the contract.
Okay, so storyline points here because there are little details. The first thing, you just mentioned it when John Cena said, "Sorry, Cody, we're not doing this match at SummerSlam." What did that remind you of?
Boy. I'm blanking.
Do you remember what you called bullshit in one of our intros for championship rings?
I do. When The Rock came out. And by the way, looking back on that, I wish I hadn't said that, because Cody Rhodes' title reign outside of AJ Styles, Kevin Owens. It was bad. I did not like it.
So my point is, think about this, Josh, for a second, okay? This is character growth for Cody. Last year in February, The Rock told Cody, you're not getting your match at WrestleMania. And Cody was willing to step aside. Don't say he didn't, because he was stepping aside. The fans were the ones that said, we want Cody, we want Cody. It forced them to change plans. In this situation, remember, Cody Rhodes also hesitated to pull the trigger with the championship belt at WrestleMania 41. In this situation, he does not hesitate to hit John Cena with the championship belt. He does not hesitate to tell John Cena, no, 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 we're doing this at SummerSlam. It's going to be a street fight. Also, Cody Rhodes, if you've been noticing lately, has been wearing the watch The Rock gave him the night after WrestleMania 40. What I believe we're going to get in the street fight is this. I do think the final boss appears at SummerSlam. I think we're going to get a double turn. We're going to get Cody Rhodes aligning himself with the final boss. We are going to get a heel, undisputed WWE champion in the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and a babyface John Cena to end his retirement tour. Now, this is where the long-term booking comes into play. The Royal Rumble 2026 in Saudi Arabia. The winner of that match will be babyface OTC Roman Reigns. The main event of WrestleMania 42 will be the trilogy between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, with them switching sides. Roman the baby, Cody the heel. Here is the caveat, though. Both men are going to be down in the ring. And at that point, that's where you hear, burn it down. Seth Rollins comes back, recovered from his ACL, heist of the century 2.0. Seth Rollins cashes in, makes it a triple threat match. He then walks out of WrestleMania 42, the undisputed champion. Now that Seth Rollins is champion, Braun Breaker starts to get upset. Oh my God, you didn't tell me that we were on these plans. You know, I was the leader here without you. I dominated Raw without you. And eventually, Breaker turns on Rollins. And the main event of SummerSlam next year in Minneapolis is Seth Rollins defending the Undisputed Championship against Braun Breaker, where Braun Breaker finally gets his moment to break out.
It's interesting. I do like what you're thinking. I don't know if it's all going to come to fruition that way. They've kind of forgotten about the Rock and Travis Scott, thank God.
Well, no, well, have they? Because they have mentioned it in promos. If you go back to the contract signing, what did Cody Rhodes say before John Cena came out? He said, I did not sell my soul to the final boss or Travis Scott.
For the most part, The Rock has not been mentioned throughout Cena's heel run, which kind of, to me, suggests that maybe they're just trying to erase that from people's minds.
Maybe The Rock doesn't come out. I still think we're getting a double turn. I think Cody Rhodes is turning heel.
It's very possible, although if they do that, it would be interesting to see how they do the presumed Randy Orton feud, because I think we are going to get that feud.
Oh, you could easily turn that immediately into Randy the babyface against Cody the heel. Randy saying, you know, what the hell, Cody? Because they have sort of went back on Randy losing all these matches because he's in this, you know, storyline with him, Joey Roll, Drew, and Logan Paul.
Oh, that's the match. I'm like, why is this on SummerSlam?
Josh, you're gonna hate me for saying this. I think these guys have a chance to steal the show night one.
Oh Lord. Well, it kind of depends if Drew McIntyre is able to get his UK.
I heard that. What are they gonna do?
I don't know. But
Do you put the Miz back in there? I mean,
do you put Carmelo Hayes in there?
maybe. They've been saying we want Mello.
Yeah, but that leads me to my big gripe, which you and I really got into this on X. I've loved the feud between Damian Priest and Aleister Black. And
what feud? There's been no feud. I don't know what you're talking about.
You haven't been watching SmackDown then.
I've watched SmackDown every single week. There was one kick by Aleister Black. That doesn't count as a feud.
They've had
I don't know. Priest is in the middle of the triangle with Truth and Black. That's the feud.
They've been having back interactions backstage and stuff.
That's not really a feud.
I disagree with you there. To me, that match belongs on SummerSlam. I really believe so.
Again, I feel bad for Priest because he's kind of lost in the shuffle because there's so many stars now that have to get on the show and he sort of lost his spot. But no, this match has had no business being on the SummerSlam card.
I completely disagree with you. Completely.
I think Aleister Black, to be honest with you, is a one-trick pony. I never liked him that much. I don't think he's a good promo. I think he's a good striker in the ring. That's about it.
I think those two are going to have to steal the word from Sheamus, an absolute banger.
They'll have a good match on SmackDown, and then that'll be fine. It's okay.
I think it belongs on SummerSlam. I really do. It's had more build than Jade versus Tiffany Stratton. Come on.
Well, I think it's about equal, but Jade is the queen of the ring, so she gets her shot at SummerSlam.
I'm not saying Jade versus Tiffany doesn't belong at SummerSlam, but
well, tell me what match you're taking off.
Honestly, I'm taking off Randy, Jelly Roll, and Drew and Logan.
So you're going to take off a celebrity involvement to get more people for the masses because you want to book a match that might get a 4-star rating from Dave Meltzer, basically.
Yeah.
And that is why we disagree so much, because you don't really care so much about the sports entertainment factor of the business, which that is what makes the business.
Look, I get it. It's nothing against Jelly Roll. If it was straight up Randy versus Drew, then I would say, yes, it totally belongs on SummerSlam. And I want Jelly Roll to prove me wrong. I do.
Oh, I think he's going to prove you wrong. I think Jelly Roll is going to have a hell of a match. I think it's going to be, that's what this sport is. It's entertainment. And I think night 2 has all nothing but extreme matches. Night 1's going to be your fun comedy night, except for Punk and Gunther, the main event, which is going to be a 5-star classic.
Yeah. It's interesting with Roman, the tag team match with Roman, Jay, Bronson, and Breakker.
Mm-hmm.
To go back to that, I really liked the opening segment for Raw last night with Paul Heyman and Jey Uso. And this is another one where I'm like, I want more time to build to this tag team match so that we could get more of a story of, Jay trying to trust Roman again.
Well, no, that's not it. That's not the story. Jay does trust Roman. The story, because they already established that at Survivor Series, in War Games. They are now friends again. They are now equal. The story now is Jay is Roman's equal because Jay has won the World Heavyweight Championship. The story after SummerSlam is going to be, now that Roman Reigns is away again, who's going to save Jey Uso? And the answer to that question is going to be, returning to Monday Night Raw, they are going to reform the Usos. And Jimmy is going to help Jay, and they're going to do a feud with Bronson and Braun, I suspect, for Clash in Paris.
So I understand that. But, with how much of a manipulative gaslighter Roman was for Jey Uso.
They already squashed all that beat. They established that before Survivor Series and the War Games. There's no story there.
I totally disagree with you. And Paul
they made it clear on television. Remember when they reunited that one segment on SmackDown with Roman, Jimmy, Jay in the ring? They all hugged it out. That was it.
Paul Heyman made a lot of valid points when it came to the promo last night.
Jay knows Paul Heyman's a liar. Jake said it to himself.
This is just one of those matches where I'm excited for it.
I think you're overthinking it way too much, Josh.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. It's not that complicated.
Again, just like I was at Evolution and at Money in the Bank, the match I am most excited about is the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Becky Lynch.
This is an interesting one because I think Lyra probably goes over, but I'm wondering if Bayley screws Lyra out of the title.
Totally getting involved in this match in some way.
Do you think she screws Lyra out of the title and Becky stays champion?
Yep, I could see that. And then they go into that feud of Bayley versus Lyra.
See, I would think that they would want that feud for the championship, and that's how Bayley wins the title off Lyra.
Or what you could do is you have Bayley screw Lyra, you keep the title on Becky. Bayley is then the one who takes the title off of Becky, and then you do have Lyra take the title off of Bayley, and that's how you put the IC championship back on Lyra.
There's a lot of possibilities, and I like the fact it's no DQ, no countout. There must be a winner.
Yeah, and they're keeping the stipulation in place that if Lyra does not win the championship, she can't challenge Becky.
Yep.
Again, how is it that they're doing such a good job with the Women's Intercontinental Championship, and then you were there for SmackDown? They just randomly have Kiana James with Julia, and Zelina Vega comes up to her backstage and goes, can I, months later, and goes, hey, can I get a rematch for that title? What?
Yeah, I mean, a complete opposite is true about the tag team division. I mean, on SmackDown, they're doing a 16 TLC, the biggest TLC match in history with the number of participants, which that will probably open up night 2 because that's going to be an absolute car crash. And then on Raw, we have Judgment Day, I guess, is the World Tag Team Champions. And, I mean, they had a good match with LWO last night, but maybe the Usos, maybe that's how they get the tag team titles on Judgment Day. Once Liv comes back, the Usos are the one to take the titles off them. That's how they start the Judgment Day descent. I don't know.
I have to say, the Judgment Day might be the best faction in the modern day. There's been 4 or 5 different iterations of them.
The Shield's better. I'll put the Shield up there easily.
Okay, I would agree, but Judgment Day is top 2 or top 3.
I think they're 3. I'd put the Undisputed Era over them personally.
Okay,
I was a big fan of the Undisputed Era back in NXT.
Okay. Again, I'm just talking modern day.
No, I agree. That's what I mean. Modern day. The Shield, which I think would be considered modern day to me, and the Undisputed Era.
Okay. But every time you think the Judgment Day is breaking up, they find a way to recreate themselves. Oh, Liv Morgan's out. What's going to happen with the Judgment Day? Let's just stick Roxanne Perez in there.
Yeah. It's the group that'll never die. Now, I do think Raquel and Roxanne retain against Alexa and Charlotte, though I have been enjoying this tag team with Alexa and Charlotte on SmackDown, and it's gotten Charlotte away from the world title. I think it's made her a little bit more likable, in my opinion, just not being in the world title picture.
And you can tell they're both having fun with it. I would not. I see what you're saying about keeping the titles on Raquel and Roxanne.
I wouldn't be mad if they lost the titles. I just think you don't make the title change until Liv Morgan comes back. That's just my thought. But
I think they actually do the title change. I do.
You could do the title change, then you could always put it back on Roxanne and Raquel.
It feels like they're trying to put more of a spotlight on the women's tag team division. Like
they tried more in the past month than they have in the past 2 years.
I know, because it feels like they sometimes forget that the women's tag team titles are even a thing.
Hell, sometimes I forget.
Yeah, exactly.
And then on the other side, I know it's been a little bit of a weird build because they haven't had much physical altercation besides last night for Judgment Day. But you tell me I'm going to get AJ and Dom for the IC title? Hell yeah.
I'm honestly loving this feud that, like, they haven't really had a true promo battle or any physical interactions, but like AJ Styles being the valet and throwing the keys and him being the janitor.
Well, him praying on his knees what got me.
Yes. See, the sports entertainment stuff doesn't always work for me, but in this case, it absolutely has. It's
when it comes to this card, there's not a lot of misses for me. I know the Jacob Fatu solo thing is not great, but you tell me you're putting Jacob Fatu in a steel cage? Hell yeah, I'm watching.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good match. But for me, other than the women's IC championship match, the other match I'm most excited about is triple threat: Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Naomi.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to WrestleMania. The difference here is obviously they're not underestimating Io anymore. I do think Naomi is going to retain. We're going to get Naomi and Stephanie Valkyrie at the Clash in Paris for the World Championship. Because I'm telling you right now, Crown Jewel has already been decided. Women's Champion Jade Cargill versus Women's World Champion Naomi.
I would not be surprised. Although I could see them putting the title on Stephanie Valkyrie at Clash in Paris. But here's my thing with this triple threat. Kind of like at WrestleMania, I can make a solid argument for Rhea Ripley winning. I can make a solid argument for Io Sky winning. I can make a solid argument for Naomi winning.
No, I actually disagree. I think there's no way Naomi loses the title here.
I think Naomi retaining is the most likely scenario, but would it surprise me if Rhea Ripley walked out as champion? No. Would it surprise me if Io Sky walked out as champion? No, it would not.
Again, it would surprise me because I'm already booking ahead. I have Crown Jewel locked. Jade's going to beat Tiffany. Naomi's going to retain here. That's your match. That's the final match in the feud. And at that show, Naomi goes over.
Probably because it's the Saudi Arabia show, and they love to do that.
Well, no, remember that's not going to be in Saudi. It's going to be in Perth this year because Saudi's getting the Royal Rumble.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right. And so because it's in Perth, that show's going to start at like 3 a.m. or something.
I think like 5 a.m. Eastern is when they usually do it. But that's my point. Josh, I think you're starting to worry this about me. When I make predictions, it's because I'm booking 3 months in advance.
Okay. By the way, AEW Dynamite tomorrow. I know you haven't felt like they've captured the momentum from All In, but I've loved these small crowds in Chicago, and I'm actually really enjoying what they're doing on Dynamite post All In. We're getting Jon Moxley versus Hangman Page again.
And the rematch. Nobody's allowed at ringside.
Yep. There will be something that allows people to come to ringside. But, usually I'm one of these guys that's like, no, only do world championship matches on pay-per-views. But in this case, you know what? I'm fine with it. I want to see what they're going to do with this. I think it's interesting that they're having MJF and Hangman already interacting. I would have thought they'd kind of save the MJF stuff for later in Hangman's title reign. Not necessarily saying that MJF is going to be Hangman's first big feud following everything with the Death Riders, although it kind of feels that way. And I'm loving that they're just throwing Toni Storm right at Athena. Or the other way. They're throwing Athena right at Toni Storm. It's been fantastic. And I'm loving what AEW's giving me right now. I really am. I know you're more of the WWE guy, and you criticize them, AEW, for the small crowds. It's been fantastic, though. I will be at Dynamite next week in Cleveland.
And I sincerely hope that you have a blast, because I tell people this all the time. That's why I will be going to an AEW show one day, the night that Edge retires. I got to go get my passport because I know it's going to be in Canada.
By the way, I'm loving this story with Adam Copeland and FTR. Stokely Hathaway, if you come within a certain distance of FTR, if you touch them, if you breathe on them, you are fired. And Cope goes, well, you didn't say anything about you. So he just spears him. He comes out Stokely Hathaway comes out next week on a crutch. And Cope, FTR wins this tag team tournament match against Jet Speed. And Cope comes out and Stokely Hathaway goes, what are you doing here? Adam Copeland, or Edge, is oh, I forgot. I'm not allowed to be within a certain distance of you. But I made a business deal with guys that are that like to hurt people. And the Hurt Syndicate came out, and it was awesome. I am loving what AEW is doing right now. It is fantastic. We've got Swerve Strickland feuding with Kazuchika Okada. That's a feud I've wanted, and now I'm getting it. We've got everything with FTR and Adam Copeland, and presumably Christian Cage, which that was a fantastic angle at All In, and I'm loving what Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian are doing post that. We've got everything with Hangman and MJF and the Death Riders and John Moxley. We've got, plus MJF and Mark Briscoe are still bumping heads. We've got, we got Toni Storm and Athena. I'm loving what AEW is doing right now. I cannot wait for Dynamite next week here in Cleveland. I can't wait.
You know what I love about professional wrestling? How different it is, yet how much different we are entertained by pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Overall, to get back to SummerSlam, if I had to give the overall card a grade, I would probably give it a B- or a B.
That's fair. I was thinking, B+, but I could see a B. I mean, were there some things I would do differently? Yes. But I think overall, I don't know. I think because WrestleMania just, even though I thought it was good, I found myself defending it more to others. There's something about this SummerSlam that I'm excited for, and I hope it delivers.
I think overall, by the way, I appreciate you saying that, Grandizer. But overall, I think the SummerSlam card is better than WrestleMania. But because they had Saturday night's main event, because they had Evolution, a lot of these matches didn't really get the time I believe they deserved to build for their respective matches.
That's fair.
I said,
we'll be back next week to discuss that and everything else in the sports world. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a little bit of a break after next week's show. So we're going to do a show next week. We're going to talk all things SummerSlam, all things going on in the sports world. We will react to this question from Grandizer because I saw the individual rankings.
Yeah.
The triple threat. So we can discuss that next week.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll get into this right now. I haven't really seen the CBS.
I have not seen this either. So let's get into this next week, Grandizer. Be here next Tuesday. We'll talk about it along with everything else in the sports world. And then after that, we're going to come back on August 28th. That's a Thursday. And on that show, we're going to preview the big week 1 college football games. We'll talk WWE, Clash in Paris, and anything else that we want to talk about in the wrestling/sports world. And then on Sunday, August 31st, we will be doing our full NFL season preview. Just like we did last year, me and Josh are going to go through all the divisions, our playoff teams, our awards, and we're going to stick to them. They're going to be official, and it's the show I cannot wait for every year. It's my favorite show of the year. Football season is right around the corner, my favorite time of year. We just got to get through this month.
Yeah, we didn't really address this, but I do want to get into it. So one last little topic. Football is back this Thursday, sort of. I know you don't count preseason games, but I do. It is the Detroit Lions taking on the Los Angeles Chargers in Canton, Ohio, in the Hall of Fame game, as it is Hall of Fame enshrinement weekend. Antonio Gates is going in as an LA Charger. I loved watching the Hall of Fame knocks. You got Shannon Sharp's brother, Sterling, going in. You got Jared Allen going in, the longtime defensive nightmare for the Minnesota Vikings. You've got, and like I said, Antonio Gates is going in. I think there's somebody else going in from either who played for the Saints or the Eagles. But
Not the Eagles that I'm aware of.
Huh?
Not the Eagles that I'm aware of.
Okay. I think it was the Saints then. But nonetheless, I always enjoy the Hall of Fame game.
Oh, that to me isn't even football. It's fourth and fifth stringers trying to fight for a roster spot. There is one, I used to care about preseason, then teams started playing not their stars in preseason, so I cared less and less about it. There's one team only that I care about in the preseason, Josh. It's your team because they have 4 quarterbacks.
Yes, I agree. So the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2025 is Eric Allen, who did play for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
Jared Allen from the Vikings. Antonio Gates of the Chargers, hence why the Chargers are playing in the Hall of Fame game. And Jared Allen of the Minnesota Vikings, like I said. So it's Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, and Sterling Sharp. Those are your 4 Hall of Famers. By the way, congratulations to Ichiro, CC Sabathia, Dave Parker, and I'm trying to remember the other Hall of Famers who got enshrined this past weekend for baseball.
For baseball, yeah.
I know it was CC, Ichiro. It was somebody else from the modern ballot, and I don't remember. So forgive me.
Not so sure, but I think that'll do it for this edition of Championship Rings. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday breaking down all things sports, and then we're going to take our little bit break, and we're going to come back, and when we do from that break, it will be full into football season. So thank you guys for being patient with us. This has been episode 87 of Championship Rings. For Ungar to the Max, the host of the Sports Room Talk Show, Josh Ungar. I am Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World. We will see you guys next